last night. Shefty, boom, Russell Wilson to the Steelers. He's going to sign a 1-year, $1.2 million contract. That is the league minimum. You're aware of the circumstances. Denver will pay the rest of it. So there is no risk in this for Pittsburgh. At least there's no financial risk. And Russell has acknowledged this is going on. While he and his wife were at the Oscars last night, he posted year 13 grateful. So he's on his way to Pittsburgh. So Shefty, jump in the middle of this free-for-all that the morning has become, and you began it last night with this news. How did this happen, and what does it mean?
Greeny, it started last week when the Denver Broncos granted Russell Wilson permission to speak with teams ahead of the free agent signing period that begins Wednesday, ahead of the negotiating period that begins at noon Eastern today. And with that head start, Russell Wilson was able to have exploratory talks with the New York Giants and then fly to Pittsburgh, where I was told that he spent about 6 hours on Friday meeting with Mike Tomlin, a head coach that he has great respect for, the new offensive coordinator, Arthur Smith. Now, keep in mind what Mike Tomlin is thinking as he meets Russell Wilson. The two men have squared off twice during Russell Wilson's NFL career. Russell Wilson is 2-0 against Mike Tomlin, and in those two games, he's thrown 8 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. So Mike Tomlin has seen the very best of Russell Wilson. The Steelers are in the market for a quarterback to compete with their former first-round draft pick, Kenny Pickett. And really, there was no risk here with Russell Wilson at all, considering that the Broncos, as you mentioned, are footing the bill for $37.8 million this year. Pittsburgh didn't have to compensate Denver, really doesn't have to compensate Russell Wilson any more than $1.2 million. So really, it's a no-lose proposition for a quarterback who last year threw 26 touchdown passes and 8 interceptions before he was benched in Denver and then essentially released. So the Steelers figured there's no risk here. Let's bring him in, get it done. And to me, the most interesting part of the Russell Wilson thing is not only that he's in Pittsburgh, where I think he believes he'll wind up winning that starting quarterback job over Kenny Pickett, though it will be in open competition, is that there's one fewer fallback quarterback option for the other teams out there that don't land Kirk Cousins potentially. That's where I also think there's an element of interest to this particular move last night.
Oh, so many. Those you've just named 2 of about the 8 things about this that I think are fascinating. But for the audience that's just joining us, Stan Orlovsky at the top of a new hour. So the Steelers at this point will go into the season with Kenny Pickett, whom they used a first-round pick on 3 years ago, and Russell Wilson in their quarterback room. Who will be their starter week 1?
Yeah, Russell Wilson. Greeny, Russell Wilson will be the Steelers' starting quarterback. And if we're being honest, the Steelers now are legitimate contenders within the division. They really weren't. We placed them as, like, contenders because of the history of Mike Tomlin and what we know of him as a head coach. But we'd always say, well, you don't stack up versus Lamar Jackson or Joe Burrow, or if Deshaun Watson gets back to what he was. They now have a chance in that division, and that's in a significantly better place than they were going into yesterday, okay? So if we want to talk about who Russell Wilson is right now in comparison to Kenny Pickett, it's not that close. And if Russell Wilson plays next year the way he did last year, and I would say in a better situation with better talent around him, this is going to be a team that's going to push those leaders in that AFC South division. There's no question about it. If I asked everybody sitting next to you, Greeny, one thing right now, what's the one thing Kenny Pickett won't do as a quarterback? What's the one complaint people have?
He doesn't push the ball down the field.
Yeah, he won't throw the ball down the field.
So what's the thing that Russell Wilson does the best?
That's what he
throws
does
it down the field.
as well as anybody ever, yeah.
Greeny, what Dano just said, just copy and paste. That's what Mike Tomlin presumably said exactly to Russell Wilson and his agent. Come in here, take us to the playoffs, resurrect your career, and look at Baker Mayfield's $50 million guarantee that he just got from Tampa Bay, and that's exactly what we'll be talking about in 2025. And that's why you have a Hall of Fame coach in Mike Tomlin to close the deal. This is an unusually, like, almost historic value that you're getting a starting quarterback for $1 million. Again, Sean Payton is paying Russell Wilson $39 million to go away, and Mike Tomlin's recruiting him to basically play for nothing. And give Russell Wilson a ton of credit. We've all criticized him, but he is betting on himself literally and figuratively.
Well, look, from him, I think this is a no-brainer. I think this was like a dream scenario for him.
Yeah.
So let me come to you. Orlovsky just suggested in a division that has Baltimore, who was the 1 seed last year and has Lamar Jackson, And Joe Burrow, who we all know when healthy is basically as good as anybody. Do you think Russell Wilson makes the Steelers a legitimate contender?
I think they'll challenge in the division. Listen, I think the one thing, the Pittsburgh Steelers went what, 10-7 last year?
10-7.
10-7 with atrocious quarterback play. Think about that. 10-7 with atrocious quarterback play and T.J. Watt missing some time on that defense. You had a guy who's, in my opinion, is an upgrade over Kenny Pickett at the quarterback spot. We know that they want to play complementary football. They want to run it. They want to push the ball down the field. You got George Pickens. You got two dynamic backs. And then obviously we can, we talk glowingly about the defense as well. That style works in the AFC North. Okay, if they get the style of play that Russell Wilson was playing when he was a starting quarterback in Denver. I'm not saying Russell Wilson was lighting the world on fire.
He was not.
But he was not a bum in Denver. Okay, if they get that style of play, the Pittsburgh Steelers will be in the playoffs next year. I think Russell Wilson is still. I think he's a good quarterback. He's not the elite quarterback that we've been accustomed to seeing from him from years ago.
Zero risk move for the Steelers.
Correct.
They're going to pay Kenny Pickett more money this year than they're going to pay Russell Wilson.
Much more.
By about $700,000. So yes, from his standpoint, he has not been on a team that had a winning record in any of the last 3 years. The Steelers, as we know, haven't had a losing record since Bill Cowher was the coach.
Right.
So this is a great match for him if he's trying to build his reputation.
Well, in a world where, and I'll get Shefty in here, in a world where we're all looking for quarterbacks to outplay their contract, I mean, the long snapper is going to outplay the contract that Russell Wilson, what they're paying him at this point. The contract is, you said it, it's not practically unprecedented. It is unprecedented. If you got your starting quarterback for the league minimum and he's a person with the background that Russell Wilson has, that is a unique circumstance. I can't imagine it's ever happened before. Shefty, go.
Well, Greeny, again, the Steelers are paying him $1.2 million. And I know that Russell Wilson believes that he has been tarred and marred by the one season that went real south in Denver when he played under Nathaniel Hackett. And he feels like if you look at the rest of his career, it's been at a high level with 9 Pro Bowl selections, a Super Bowl championship. That's what he believes. We talked about him going in there. Again, he said on the Brandon Marshall podcast that he still wanted to win multiple Super Bowls because that's how he still views himself. The way that Pittsburgh views it is if it wasn't going to be Russell Wilson, it was going to be Mason Rudolph, who's a free agent. But they had to bring one quarterback in to compete with Kenny Pickett. Do you prefer, and I'm just asking, Russell Wilson at $1.2 million or bringing back Mason Rudolph at a number that would have been even higher than that?
Right.
And so the Steelers made their choice. Now, Mike Tannenbaum brought up Baker Mayfield, and I think there's a great analogy in this on the day that both quarterbacks land agreements with their particular teams. A year ago, Baker Mayfield signed a one-year $4.4 million deal with the Buccaneers. He bet on himself because he believed that the Buccaneers had a ready-made roster to win, that he would win there, that he would play well there, and he would parlay that into the type of contract that he got yesterday. 3 years, $100 million, $50 guaranteed. Russell Wilson, in a way, is taking a page out of the Baker Mayfield playbook. He's going into Pittsburgh. He's doing a one-year deal. They did discuss adding a second year. There wasn't a team out there that was willing to give him a second year the way he wanted. So Russell Wilson said, hey, let's let Denver pay $37.8 million this year. You pay me $1.2. I'm going to go play in an organization that has won consistently, that has been a culture of winning, that has a great running game, that has a great defense, and he believes he will be the difference maker. And if he's right, and if they do go to the playoffs and have success, well, then he's going to be in the Baker Mayfield position 1 year from now. And we'll talk about him doing an extension. But right now, Pittsburgh has nothing to lose. Zero by signing him to the deal it did.
An exceptional explanation. I hope everyone followed every word of that because that's exactly what just happened here. That's why it makes all the sense in the world for Russell Wilson. Orlovsky, go.
He's got to go be 2019 Ryan Tannehill. He's got to go be 2022 Geno Smith. We have a lot of evidence of some of these quarterbacks that were cast off. They can't play. You're not good enough anymore. And they go to a different situation, and all of a sudden they elevate and get back to kind of that consistency. The conversation around Russell Wilson has become one of the dumbest conversations I've been a part of the last 18 months. To give everybody His last 4 seasons of playing quarterback in the NFL, okay? Facts over feelings. In 2020, 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and a 105 rating. In 2021, 25 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, a 103 rating. In 2022, 16 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, 84 rating. That's the bad year. Pittsburgh would have dreamed for that year last year. And then this past season, 26 touchdowns, 8 picks, and a 98 rating. We talk about Russell Wilson like he's a cast-off. I don't understand it. Maybe you don't like the personality. Maybe you don't. And maybe